All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to our latest ALTA Insights webinar. I'm Jeremy Yohe, ALTA's Vice President of Communications, and today we've got a great presentation designed to help you develop your cybersecurity defense, potentially, hopefully, without breaking the bank. Hope you all had a wonderful July 4th holiday. As we all know, criminals don't really take a break on the holidays. That's probably usually a nice open door for them. And hopefully everything keeps working for today's webinar. We're having a little weather here, and my Wi-Fi is down, so I'm on my phone's hotspot. So fingers crossed, nothing goes too haywire. Before starting, I always have the obligatory housekeeping items to go over. Today's webinar is being recorded. You'll get an email with a link to the recording tomorrow, and you can always access all of our webinar recordings at alta.org/webinars. In the meantime, you can download a PDF of today's presentation from the handouts section. We've also provided an additional document that includes links to several cybersecurity tools. You know, some are free, some have some nominal fees, monthly, yearly, depending on what you're looking for. If at any time you have a question during today's webinar, submit them in the questions box. We'll hold some time at the Q&A at the end of the presentation. The speaker's contact information is on the last slide, so you know, if you do ask a question we don't get to it, please feel free to reach out to the speakers. I need to thank Stabby for sponsoring today's webinar. And before introducing the speakers, we have a short commercial from Stabby.
Today's consumers expect a modern approach to buying and selling real estate. Stabby's e-closing solution offers the flexibility you need to grow your business and meet the demands of today's customers. Our digital platform offers the flexibility of hybrid with e-sign or full e-closing with remote online notarization and in-person electronic notarization, modernizing conventional paper-based closing processes for greater convenience and efficiency. Imagine all of your transactions in one simple, secure flow of data, reducing risk and helping protect your business against identity fraud, missing signatures, and lost documents. Stabby simplifies your workload during busy times, allowing you to easily manage scheduling conflicts, broaden your service area, and experience faster closing times. Join us in moving real estate beyond documents.
Okay, thank you, Stabby. Securing the flow of data, definitely very important, and you know, a little bit of the topic today, how to protect data, protect money. And let me get the slide deck showing again, in case it's not. All right, with that, let me introduce today's speakers. We do have a little tech issue, so Gennadi's video camera isn't showing, but he is here with us. Gennadi, we have Gennadi Vishnevetsky. He is the Chief Information Security Officer for Stewart Title. Gennadi is an established leader with experience in building successful security programs and developing the defense against emerging threats. He is chair of ALTA's Information Security Work Group. And we also have Sean Fox. Sean is Chief Revenue Officer for Premier One. Premier One provides IT and cloud solutions. Sean has vast experience in the information technology and services industry. With that, thank you both for being here, and Gennadi, I will turn the presentation over to you.
Thank you, Jeremy. Welcome, everyone. We're excited to have you today for this presentation. I want to start with the very basics. You can secure something you don't know existed. This is why the basic fundamentals are extremely important. And you might want to say, well, I've heard this for years, but still, a lot of companies still neglecting some very basic fundamentals. You need to have a full inventory of what you have. And the full inventory is not just the computers they're sitting on your desk. You need to know what's in your closet. You need to know what's in the cloud. You need to know what's located with your partners, service providers, etc. that QuickBook Online that your two of the folks within your organization are using, that needs to be an inventory. So just make sure the inventory is have a broader spectrum in your head, not just the computers and mouse and keyboards and monitors. Standardizations is extremely important because attackers are finding weaknesses in the computer or in the software. So if you have standards that you apply to every single asset and it's uniform, you have a lower surface for the attacks against your endpoints. Patching is extremely important. If you don't have to have a sophisticated tools like SCCM or any other. You can just set, if your company uses Windows computer, you just can set them to auto update and auto reboot. And you can actually even schedule with the modern operating systems, Windows 11, Windows 10, you can schedule your reboot of hours. It's set it and forget it. It is extremely important that your user are not run as a standard user, not administrator. While the modern malware sometimes, a lot of times actually doesn't require administrative privileges to be installed, executed, or damage your computer, some of them still is. So it's a low-hanging fruit for you to protect. Make sure your users are not running as administrators. So passwords are everywhere. And if you think that your password is unknown or you never change the password policy and the hygiene is extremely important. Your password policy needs to be shorter. Your password needs to be longer. You can use a passphrase. There are different opinions about the password. NIST, National Institute of Standards and Technology, is recommending a longer password and lower rotation. If you are using a passphrase or longer passwords, you can extend your rotation time to the longer, maybe twice a year or every quarter, etc. But still, you have to monitor different channels for a password leak, and if you find the passwords been sold in the dark web or resold on the dark web, you need to rotate it more frequently. Like multi-factor authentication is no longer an option. That's the only means or a point that stands between you and attacker, because the password from the past breaches are now getting into dark web and resold faster than ever. Going back to my first bullet, understand where your surface is at, and don't overlook some other aspect. Not just look at in your office. Make sure you understand where your data is located, where the entry point, and who manages this. Some businesses adopting bring your own computer that allows employees to connect to their services using their home computers or the computers they bring in. Invest into the endpoint, because all of the previous bullets you can apply. You can secure the computer you don't control. You can see whether it was updated. You can see how the user uses and what applications they're running on these computers. You cannot protect. You have no protection or visibility on the computers that you don't own. And just make sure you understand the mobile computers are possessed as a high risk today. The last statistic I read is 70% of the business is conducted now on the mobile devices. Mobile devices have their own limitations. Remember, the smaller screen, the applications, how the application presents the information. For example, if you're using Outlook on the desktop, you can immediately see a display name and the email associated with it in your Outlook client. On the mobile device, you see only display name. This is highly exploited by attackers today. This is why the first path of attack is the attackers, once they know someone that they try to portray to be Ian, they'll go to live.com or Yahoo or Gmail, and they'll create email with that obfuscated email with the display name, because on the mobile device, that's all you're going to see. You actually have to click on the name to see a display. So just make sure the mobile device, you have a policy and you have a process where users are patching their mobile device and observing just basic hygiene. Having security set up, either PIN or swipe or Face ID, and just go through the simples. These are very simple steps and basic fundamental principles. Sean, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, honestly, the first part that you were talking about, the basic security hygiene, the full inventory, this kind of falls under one thing. Make sure, based off of E&O, cyber, and your, insurance claims these days, that inventory, what he's talking about is your servers, your computers, everything that you're using on a day-to-day basis needs to make sure that it's up to date and patched. One of the big things that you should be aware of right now is the Windows 11 upgrades that need to be done by October of next year because they're going out of, Windows 10 is going out of support, so now you got to upgrade to Windows 11. So you have plenty of time to do it, and you just need to start budgeting out for it, because once those machines go end of life, then then you're not able to support those anymore. You're not able to patch them anymore, which just causes a big security risk. So make sure that you're budgeting for that. The other thing that you talked about is data center versus office versus cloud versus SaaS. It's not acceptable anymore for an owner of a company to say, oh, I don't know, my IT company just manages that, or my IT guy just manages that. You should have an understanding of where all your data is sitting, where you are able to access that, and how it's set up the right way, what redundancies are in place. So know your surface, know exactly where all your devices are, know exactly where your data is. Just kind of educate yourself when you're looking at your network from a high level, but just make sure that you're kind of just paying attention to it. But really the big thing off of this deck right here is Windows 11 is coming up, and everything has to be updated by the October of next year. You can update some of the machines, but some machines are just going to have to be completely replaced.
Thank you, Sean. Okay, apologies, this didn't come out. This had a little visualization, but I'll walk you through this slide. So we talk about the basic hygiene on the previous slide. So basically, and we understand that many of you have a limited IT resources, you have a limited budget to spend, etc. So I'm going to give you two things to focus on, because if you think fundamentally, if you are following all of the basic principles, if you have your office network and you have a firewall, and this firewall is configured appropriately and somebody verified and validated, you already protected your walls. If you have locks on the doors, etc., you did the basic security fundamentals. Now the risk that can come into you are basically our two main entry points. One is the email and one is the web. And there are actually security tools, either free or at low cost, that will help you to protect both of these channels. I'll give you some of the examples. For example, for a web proxy, and we'll talk about it later. So there is a technology called the web proxy, and this can be a local, could be a cloud-based. And what it does, it filters the traffic, and it starts from very low, just looking at the basic blocking and tackling, the blacklist and bad known websites and IP addresses. It's just blocking from your user to being able to access it, and reduces the risk. And it goes all the way to the behavior and analytics and threat intelligence, etc. There are multiple levels of this web proxy. And in similar veins, there are multiple additions now to the email technology that allows you to protect not against just the basic fundamentals as a virus is, but also looks at the behaviors and analyzes the links and does what's known as a sandbox. So what it is just this virtual machine that sits in the cloud, and it opens the email and either downloads the attachments or clicks on the link and see what the behavior is, where it's going to land you on the link or what the attachment does, and then it destroys this virtual machine. It called sandboxing. So there's some technology now available that produce the advanced email services. And these are available if you're a Microsoft shop or if you're a Google shop. The basic stuff is available from both of those providers. So you actually don't have to go to a third party and spend a lot of money on it. Sean, anything to add?
No, I think you hit most of it on there. Yeah, just make sure that you don't have to spend a lot of money on a lot of these basic tools to stop things from coming in. Just do some very clean hygiene on your email. I mean, honestly, for the title insurance industry itself, it's very heavy on email, more than any other industry out there. So make sure that you're looking at your Microsoft Secure Score if you're on M365. Make sure that you're looking in your G Suite security settings if you're on Google. So just do some basic hygiene and just maintain that on a monthly basis and just make sure that it's set up the right way.
Now we'll talk about modern attack vectors. The social engineering probably doesn't surprise anyone, is the first and main attack vectors. Your data is everywhere. It's publicly available. It's the social media. We're pretty loose when we configure this. I'll give an example. For example, LinkedIn actually has on many other platforms. So by default, if you actually didn't go into a configuration and put the slider or change the slider to make your data not available, your data is actually whatever your public profile is, it's actually available to the search engines. Google is one of them, but there are many others. So what happens is the Google search engine will search will go and enumerate the LinkedIn and will just harvest all of the data that is available from your public profile, and it works similarly for any other social media platform. And unfortunately, a lot of these defaults are actually by default it's publicly available. Do yourself a favor, go search for yourself on Google. Just search for yourself, and you will find a lot of links to the public profiles for your social media profiles. Just be careful. Just have no illusion. There is data available everywhere. Data available from the breaches. All of the data ends up on the dark web, and it gets sold and resold. There is a data that is end up on the dark web that has not been publicly available, or disclosed. So there are smaller shops where there might have the PII or some sensitive data on you that were breached, and because they're small enough, they never made it to CNN or any other news, and they were because they are staying on the radar of regulatories, they won't disclose this breach. So the credentials, it's extremely important because these credentials are sold. So let me just kind of walk you through how it works. So the credentials, if they're stolen or discovered or compromised in any of the breach, they get cleaned up and they get sold on the dark web as the credentials. And then someone buys these credentials, and there are a number of tools. They will plug in these credentials, and they will actually see if these credentials of any of the permutations of this. For example, if you're using password 324 as your password, these tools will do a permutations. They'll replace A with A. They'll do what our brain does, what we've done for many, many years. These tools are programmed to do exactly the same thing. They'll replace the vowels, they'll permutate, they'll try password 1, 2, 3, password 7, 8. But they're doing it at the lightning speed. And what they will do is they will actually test this password against the different services. Maybe they came out from a breach that has no relevance to either Microsoft or Wells Fargo banks, etc. They just take these credentials and they ran this, what's known as a password spraying attack, against every single service, and they will see where they work. And where they work depends on the value. They will use the credentials for themselves, or they will repackage, clean them, repackage, and resold it at a higher price, because now these are credentials that are working somewhere else. And this is full-fledged and full-structure business. Impersonation is important to understand, and it's mostly related to your. So remember, the first attack vector, the first services they will try this password spraying attack is against your mail services. They'll try every mail platform, Yahoo, Microsoft. They'll also know your domain from your email address. They'll probably try your domain. Remember, we talk about the importance to have a multi-factor authentication, because that's the only things that will stay between attacker and you if they know your credentials through your email. Once they get into your email, they can do one of the two things. One is they can become you, and normally on the first attempt, the first thing they will do is they'll actually set up the points of presence, so they can, if they lose the access to your account because you reset the password, they still have access to your emails, and they do this through a rule manipulation. They can do this either to forward all of the to set up the rule to forward all of their emails, or sometimes if they are actually inside and monitoring specific transaction, they may set up the unique rules unique to this transaction. For example, if they are interested in intercepting information, they will be setting up the rules when the email received from a buyer or a realtor or a broker or a loan officer. The rule will forward email to an attacker, and it will actually delete it from user's mailbox and then purchase from deleted items. So the expected user will never actually see this email, but the attacker will. And what it does, the second step they will do is they will actually do an impersonation. As I mentioned earlier, they will go and create a free account at the Gmail with a display name of their victim, and they will now register type of squatting domain, and now they will inject themselves into this chain and leaving you as intended recipient out of ban. So make sure you check for any emails rules you set up, and you do it frequently. If you are a Microsoft client, you can actually disable forwarding email outside of your tenant globally. It's probably hard to do in our business, but then again, this is specific settings for your rules, so it's not impacting regular emails you forward on your own. It only blocks the emails forwarding outside of your tenant that are set through the email rule. Support scams are pretty old. You probably remember them. The most common Microsoft support scam has existed for decades, but it takes it to the next level now, and I'll give you a couple examples. The Microsoft support scams is when you receive a call from someone portrayed to be from Microsoft, and they said, "Oh, we detected there is malicious software and a virus on your computer. We need to go and run a diagnostic on it." And they actually fish you into going to the website and download the software. The software is a remote access Trojan, and it's actually they will have an access to the victim's computer through this remote access Trojan. Now they're attacking the service desk. If you're a larger organization, and because the service desk has the power to manipulate with the users, reset the user's password, set up or disable multi-factor authentications, create the new users, do a lot of manipulations with the users. So this can come from any form. This can come, remember, they understand and know our business. They can call and pretend to be a technical support from Qualia, saying, "Hey, we detected some unusual activities with your account, we just want to verify." And these attacks are very, very sophisticated, very meticulous today. They're actually finding ways to obfuscate even two-factor authentications. MFA, we've been preaching about multi-factor authentications for years, and many users and the companies switch and shifted towards that direction. And I'm not trying to downplay the importance of MFA, but you need to be aware of MFA attacks now. These are three common attacks we've seen. One is the MFA fatigue. So if you're not using the phish-resistant MFA, users will get bombarded with either text messages or using the application push, and finally user will give up and just press accept or allow. The SIM swapping, this is actually, if you look at the large breaches associated with, for example, MGM is one of them. That was the actual attack using a privileged user, and they were able to overcome two-factor authentication by just taking away users' SIM swap, doing the SIM swap and taking away the user's mobile device and porting that number to an attacker, so attacker now can receive the code. And then in many of these attacks, there is also known attacker in the middle attack, where the attacker actually bypasses the two-factor authentication and credentials, for that matter, completely, by injecting themselves in the middle, and after user provide the username and the password and even the token, then your computer established this session, kind of approved channel to that application through a token or a cookie. And if attacker is in the middle, they can steal that token or a cookie and replay it anywhere else. And lastly, I want to talk about the browser-based attack. This is not the presentation about different attack vectors, so I want to be respectful of the time we spend on this. But you need to be aware of browser add-ons. If your business is using browser add-ons, or you're allowing your users to download and install browsers add-on, you need to be aware of risk associated with it, because this browsers add-on can monitor what websites you're going to, and some of them can even intercept the keystrokes that go into different websites. And info stealers is another way, is one of the mainstreams now. It's a malicious software that just captures everything. It's like a carbon copy. Once installed, it captures every keystroke. It actually downloads the passwords are stored in the web browser. There is actually now so the info stealer market is pretty big. Sean, do you have anything else to add on this slide?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I would focus on the fact that right now, cybercrime is the third largest economy in the world. Number one is the United States. Number two is China. Well, let's be honest, with the way the economy is going right now, cybercrime is probably number one, because the economies are just not good right now. So that's probably the first thing. Understand that these are organizations, just like you're running a title company or you're running a bank or a law firm. They are companies that are trying to attack your businesses. They don't care if you're 5 users, 50 users, 500 users, 5,000 users. They're looking for ease of access to get into your environment. So these basic steps that, we're talking about attack vectors, there's basic steps that you just need to implement to make sure that you're keeping these organizations out of your 4 walls. The one, that we see on a regular basis these days is MFA token harvesting. Basically, it's, you're getting prompted to go check on, you get an email, you click on the link, it takes you to a web page that looks like an Office 365 login. You put in your credentials, there's a tool running in the background that harvests your MFA token, and now they're into your environment. So everything, even though it looks like you're going into a 365 landing page, read the URL to make sure that you're actually going to where you need to go before you start clicking on anything, before you start actually entering in your credentials. And honestly, at the end of the day, if it feels off, trust your gut, move on. Trust your gut, verify everything, double check everything before you actually go through those next steps. So, Gennady put together, the ideas and the attack vectors, and what most of you are here for is, where do we start? How do, with the market the way it is, you don't have extra money sitting around, you're not sitting on a lot of cash reserves. And so, but you still need the security side of things, because at the end of the day, you still need to get your E&O renewed. You still need to get your cyber insurance renewed. If you're in Texas, you need Texas Department of Insurance. Everything that's coming into play, you need to know where you are as far as your security standards. The way I kind of look at this is, again, if you're 5 users, 50 users, 5,000 users, assess where you are today. Take a top-down look as to where your company sits. What have you done to actually implement the security tools that you need in place? So take an assessment of where your company stands right now and start right there. The next is you're going to have to create a budget. There are tools out there that you are going to have to pay for, and some of them are cheap. Make sure you're educating yourself on what they are. But you're probably using some things right now that you can actually, you're probably not utilizing those tools correctly. Depending on your Microsoft 365 licensing, there's some inherent security tools that are built into your licensing. So make sure that if you're already paying for that, so Microsoft 365 Business Premium has a lot of security tools that you can turn on within that licensing, and you're already paying for it, so you might as well get the money out of the value of it. So do an audit of all of your licensing on the Microsoft 365 and even on the Google Suite. We recommend designating a cybersecurity monitor or manager. this is overwhelming. This, it's not 5 years ago. This market is changing every month. And for me, I do it every day of my life, and it's overwhelming for me. I spend half my life in title and the other half going around to cybersecurity conferences, educating myself on the new threat vectors out there, the new bad actors, and the new tools that need to be put in place. This person doesn't need to be a technical resource. It just needs to be somebody that can actually just follow a plan and a timeline that you're going to implement. And I would just suggest designate, again, if 5 users, designate one person that's in charge of that. That's probably going to be the owner of the company. And just make sure that they're staying on top of what you're trying to do as security and IT. The easiest way to start doing that is to follow a specific cybersecurity standard. I'll jump down. Alta best practices is a good starting point, and a lot of the things that have been built into that follow the CIS standards. But it's a starting point. You need to go through the CIS and NIST and SOC 2. And again, it's overwhelming, but it's a good guideline to follow. If you're just doing this on your own, it's kind of hard to get up to a CIS standard, but at least you have a roadmap as to where you can go to, and same with NIST and same with SOC. Obviously, in the title world, there's a lot of different vendors, title companies, escrow companies that are out there getting their SOC 2 Type 2 certifications. And those are good, but even then you still have to even go beyond that SOC certification to really look at the security standards. It's gotten to the point now where you're looking at it from a standpoint, you're going to get hit with something, but do you have enough layers in place to stop it from becoming systemic? So if somebody does harvest your MFA token, they get into your email, is that the end of it? Or are they now sending out spoofed emails from your account? Or did you have a system in place that was able to remedy that attack vector and fix it without you having to think about it? So those things, you just need to make sure that you're following a standard. And then once you start following that standard, there's tools out there, and I don't suggest these right now because the tools that follow your compliance are expensive. So you can just follow the CIS standards and NIST standards and go through that practice. One of the first things that you should do is security education awareness. Supplement with phishing simulation, so phishing training. So companies like KnowBe4 or Fin that are sitting out there right now, those are tools and they're very inexpensive. I think KnowBe4 might be about $1.38 per user per month, somewhere around there. Fin is around the same thing. So Fin, PHIN is the other one. And those are inexpensive, but also when you're coming 2025, when you're going to get your insurance renewals, your E&O and everything, you have to check those boxes. And what we're finding right now is if you check that box, but you're actually not actually using that tool, the insurance companies are now coming back and not issuing the claim because they're saying you check that box, but you don't even have any documentation that you've actually been using these tools. So phishing training is the utmost importance because no matter how many tools you put in place, at the end of the day, your first line of defense is your employees. So you have to educate your employees to make sure that they're aware of what's going on and the red flags that are popping up on their email. Again, title's so heavy on email that you need to make sure that your employees are trained and educated, and they're going to go through 8 to 10 videos once a year of training, but then you can actually see the progress. And if you want to be an evil company, you can make a dashboard where whoever clicks on the link say you're the bad person in the company. By the way, it's usually the C-suite people that click on every link that's ever sent to them, just to let you know. But you can actually just keep track of it. A lot of our clients just play a little fun game on who's clicked on the links and who has to go back into training. To Gennadi's point, MFA is not an option anymore. Most of the time it's free. Just turn it on. You go to, we'll talk about business, but even in your personal banking life, if you're Bank of America, Fifth Third, or whoever you're using, there's the option to turn on your MFA. And if you have employees that are like, oh, we don't want to put in the 6-digit code, or we don't want to prove that, that's that fatigue side that he was just talking about. But at the end of the day, that 6-digit code, does that stop you from having to deal with a $20,000 wire fraud? So that's a very simple tool to turn on right out of the gates. And 98% of them are free. You can get a little bit more sophisticated with it, but you can actually turn on that MFA, but make sure it is phish resistant as well. But these, I mean, starting points, my biggest strong point out of this, designate a cybersecurity monitor and follow a specific standard and create a timeline for implementation.
Hey, Sean, real quick question in regard to the phishing. I noticed it might have been late last year, earlier this year, I don't remember, but in Outlook, they now have like a little phishing icon button that you can click on if you receive an email that you think is phishing. You know, is that an effective tool, or what happens after that?
So yeah, that's an effect. It basically flags that email. So if somebody clicks on that tool, then we get a notification on our side. Yes, it is an effective tool, and it's actually going to flag that email, and then it's actually going to put in some parameters to block it as well. So yes, and not all those. So that's separate than the phishing training though too. So just be aware of it. Okay.
Yeah, I believe your investment in your employees and security awareness should be your biggest investment, monetary investment. And it doesn't require, like Sean said, it doesn't require a lot of money, but you need to create a culture. And so let me explain to you. So the training in phishing simulation is important. There is different school of thoughts. Do I shame the users or not? But you need to embrace, you need to create a culture where people are not afraid. And it's actually perfect to have this perfect role for the cybersecurity monitor or manager if you don't have a dedicated IT resources or security resources. If you do, or if it's a team, if you're a larger agent, that's where all the reports needs to go. And you shouldn't shame your users for actually clicking on the phishing emails. You need to create a culture where it's acceptable and allowed, and you will make mistakes. But what's important is, and we see in our business, none of the technology is perfect. Email security technology is perfect. And attackers are getting more and more sophisticated every single day, and attacks getting more sophisticated. So the things will pass through all of the gates and all of the security technology, and the user is your last line of defense. And with that button that you just asked, Jeremy, it can go and report to either the security manager, cybersecurity monitor manager, or your security operations team, and they will be able to detect if it's malicious or not. You can also create a peer if you're smaller agents. Create this culture of peer review, etc. Hey Susie, I just received this email. Can you take a look at to see how does it look to you? If you change the culture of your employees, this is your biggest bang for the buck, in my opinion.
Yeah, agreed. So the shaming is, don't do the shaming, but if your company wants to put a fun game onto it just to keep people accountable, but don't shame them. They're going to click on it. I click on things sometimes too, so don't worry about it.
Okay, so we talk about the proxies. Not going to spend a lot on technology. There are free proxy available. So basic principle of a proxy is to be able to detect if you are going to something that is well-known malicious. And like I said earlier, there are some that are free that basically will look up the list. Think of it as a telephone yellow pages. It will look at the yellow pages of bad IPs and bad websites, and will block him. And it has many layers between this free plan and most sophisticated plan, but consider to install it. This is very easy. Someone will come with an agent. The more sophisticated will come with a piece of software that you have to install on the user's machine. It could be as simple as redirecting your DNS to an external provider, and they will do all the filtering and notification. Same goes for email proxies. This is enhancement tools, and they can be inline, which means they can be before it hits either your Google Suite or Microsoft Office or whatever email systems. It could be a complementary. It could connect through any of the system through the programmatic interface, and you can add the multiple layers of this, anything from free to paid services. And don't neglect, like Sean says, don't neglect what you're already paying for. Privileged access is extremely important. The attackers are after privileged accounts. They are not, for wire fraud, they'll take any user. They'll compromise any user. They'll compromise emails. But for more sophisticated stuff, they need privileged privileges, and they will go after privileged account. And when I say privileged account, it's not just administrator on your machine, but it's administrator in your Resware or Qualia or SoftPro or whatever else you use it. It's administrator in your QuickBooks you use for your account. It's administrator in your CRM, whatever that CRM is. So make sure there are some more sophisticated, but you can even use a password manager. All the password managers, if you go to enterprise version or business version of the password manager, it allows your users, it allows you to create the folders and structure and assign different permissions to different business users and different business units and different users, and allow them to store and collaborate and store even shared passwords in a secure means. We'll talk about working as standard users, no administrators. You can run modern computers as administrators. It's super dangerous. And clean up, Sean, talk about it. So if you are a Microsoft shop, in Google it's a little bit different because Google doesn't have a centralized or organized directory identity provider identity services, so we have to go through the manual. But make sure you delete the accounts for departed users. It's extremely important. I can't tell you how many businesses and companies are not following a cleanup process and still have dormant accounts and dormant users months and years, sometimes years after their termination. The role-based access is extremely important. Your users should not have access to anything they're not entitled on. So you achieve this with a role-based access. And the incident response plan it's good if you have a plan, if it's printed. It's even better if it's printed, but you have to practice in preparations. And when you only practice, you get stronger and you have more resilience and you have more ways to recover. Because during these practices, you will find the weaknesses, you'll find the flaws, you'll find your incident response plan needs to include all the contacts, all of your service providers, all of your critical contacts and your critical companies you rely on. And this needs to be periodically reviewed and updated, because it doesn't help you if you do it once a year or never. If you are in an incident and you're trying to call your service provider because your network is down and you don't have a right contact or right telephone number, or you don't know what your circuit or access code is, or account number, etc. That needs to be, remember that Rolodex we talk about on the slide 1, that needs to be part of your incident response plan. And remember, training and preparation is extremely important. You have to do it at least annual, and ideally maybe quarterly, because that makes you stronger. So the last one is for about last year, I've been told when I do a presentation, I tell the agents, small and large, this is very technical world. You can no longer brush and say it won't happen to me, because it will happen to you. And you can't brush off and say this is too technical, I don't understand. This is, in fact, is very, very, very technical. So it is extremely important for you to understand. If you do not have a technical resources, if you don't have on staff the IT and security resources who can help you to go through this, it can help you through basic hygiene and all of this enhancement and advancement. You need to have someone on the retainer. The last thing you want to do if you are in an incident, try to find an IT shop who can help. John?
No, I think you hit on everything. Just the one thing, the role-based access, just to kind of clarify that. That means if you're a processor, your processor shouldn't have the same access as your accounting department or your HR department or your escrow department. So role-based access is basically your job description, and that's your rights within your network. So that would be the only thing just to clarify, but everything else, yeah, you're 100% correct, Gennady. When I look at security, I look at it from the implementation standpoint, and this is more towards the back end. Antivirus is dead. It's your basic security. Everybody has antivirus. It can get bypassed pretty easily these days, but it's another layer that's in there. But The ones that we look at and the ones that help me sleep at night, and I think that helps most companies if they implement these, are the next two, EDR, which is endpoint detection and response. And what that is, it's a tool that's deployed on all your PCs, and it's basically monitoring that PC for any malicious software that is going into that PC. And it's specifically hardware detection right there. MDR is really the one that, both of these now next year in 2025 are going to be coming up on, you're going to see it on, again, on all your renewals that you guys are going to have to do. MDR, Managed Detection and Response, is by far and away the one that has developed the most over the last couple years. And this is watching your organization as a whole. So let's go back to the MFA token harvesting. What this is actually doing is it's watching that login, it's watching that user login, you put in a name and that your MFA gets bypassed. MDR is watching that and it automatically shuts it down and removes it from the environment. So, and what that's doing, and then once the MDR gets removes it, it brings in your SOC, so your Security Operations Center. So not like your SOC 2 Type 2, this is SOC Security Operations Center, and they evaluate the risk. And so at the end of the day, if your email gets taken over, MDR is going to go in there. So maybe there was 50 emails that were sent out from your email address. MDR stopped it. If without MDR, you could have sent out 5,000 emails to all your contact lists and all your vendors from your email. Another way of looking at it is if you have an Excel spreadsheet and you enable macros, and that macros releases malware or ransomware into your environment, the MDR SOC tool is actually going to remove that computer from the environment, isolate it, so that way if you're a 100-employee company, you are actually just replacing one computer rather than 99 computers. And the idea is also to stop it from protecting your data as well. So those two tools are very crucial, and EDR was part of the questionnaires this past year. When we review all of our clients, that EDR was asked if you do have that in place. The last security conference I went to about 3 weeks ago, that is now going to be a requirement into those insurance and those questionnaires as well, coming up in 2025 for the MDR side of things. But at the end of the day, you still have to educate yourself on it, and you have to spend wisely. Those two tools right there, you can throw a lot of money at, and you're not going to get the value out of it if it's not implemented correctly. There are some tools, and I think one of them is on Gennadi's sheet, one of the handouts. Huntress is a very good tool, and it's an EDR and an MDR tool, and they're pretty inexpensive, and it's a really good product. There's other ones out there called Blackpoint. There's other Sophos. You've heard of Sentinel-1. Sentinel-1 is around a lot, but those two tools are crucial to keeping your environment safe and stopping attacks from becoming systemic. Again, you're going to get hit with something. It's just a matter of how many layers you have in place to stop it from becoming systemic, and are you able to recover? But educate yourself. Some of them are vaporware. I go talk to all these different vendors that are at these conferences, and some look very good, and on the front side of it, it checks all the boxes, but when you start getting into the weeds on it, they're not actually doing what's saying on the front end. So make sure that you're actually vetting it out. Test your backups. I can't stress this enough. We just our CTO was on a day off last week on a Friday. We got a call that a title company, their IT manager lost all their backups, and we had to go in and recover everything for them. Test your backups. Tell your IT company, tell your IT manager, when was the last time you had your backups tested? Have you ran through a scenario that if you lose power or if anything happens, or a natural disaster, like Gennadi's sitting down in Houston right now from the hurricane without power, what happens? Are you able to get back up and running? You need to test your backup, and you need to make sure that you're holding your MSP and your IT manager accountable. If you're sitting there, and when I say test your backups, that means if you're 100 employees, all 100 employees can get back up and running. We ran into scenarios where it's 100 employees and only 5 employees can get back up and running. So make sure that you are testing those on a regular basis. I would suggest, obviously once a quarter would be ideal, but understanding with where we are, if you can do it at least twice a year, minimally you should do it once a year to make sure that your backups where they need to be, whether you're sitting in Qualia, Resware, SoftPro, anywhere you have to have a backup solution in place. But at the end of the day, you're paying for these services. You're either paying for an employee at your company to do all the IT management and risk management, or you're paying an MSP. Ask them the tough questions. Hold them accountable for what you're doing. Hold their feet to the fire and say, hey, listen, we need this. We need to make sure that we're actually functioning as a company. Gennady, anything to add on that?
Yeah, so EDR, I think the great point on EDR, regretfully, we see a lot of banks now start factoring in technology. I don't like when either regulators or banks start adding technology into MSAs in the requirements and kind of worksheets and the audits. We start seeing this from a regulator, not only on the cyber insurance side. For example, if you are subject to New York DFS added EDR as a requirement to operate business in New York, in New York State. One is to understand, so the EDR depends on the size of your organization and the technical resources you either have or don't have. So EDR would require you to have either IT resource who manages this internally, or a helper who comes and manages this externally. So if you do not have either qualified IT security resources who can manage this tool, it's a pretty complex tool. That I strongly urge you to consider MDR, because that's basically EDR that is managed by someone else, someone who is expert in this, someone who specializes in this. On the backup side, whether you do it yourself or have someone else, write down this word, immutable backup. So your backup needs to be immutable. So what that means is your backup is written and nothing can destroy it. So once it's written, it becomes read-only. Nothing can erase that backup, nothing can modify this backup, because this is step number 2 on any intrusion. So once the attacker is inside of your environment, the step 1 is they will set up the backdoor, they will secure their environment to be able to make sure they can get into your environment anytime. Number 2, they will detect and determine what backups you're using, and they will go and destroy these backups. Because the next step number 3, and their primary goal is to deploy the ransomware. And there is more and more cases where the company do not pay ransom, and they actually go back and restore and recover from the backup, which is good for you if you can restore if you ever in these situations, but your backup needs to be immutable. So if someone else, if you're subscribing to backup services from a service provider, or you have IT partner or service provider who is responsible for your backup, make sure your backup is immutable, in addition to make sure you continuously test in your backups.
And then lastly, I just wanted to share this report for you guys. This is a client that we just brought on in the middle of May, and they're a smaller company, about 15 users. They have 19 devices. Just last month alone, this is what MDR does. So this is what a managed detection and response is doing, and it's constantly analyzing your environment. Just in the month of June alone, they had over 4 million attacks, and that had to be analyzed onto their environment off of 19 devices. They detected 80,000 of them, produced metadata collected for analysis, being processed, and so they're just watching it from the flow, and then they hunt it down and produce an event risk score. So what they're doing is this is actually a team of people that is looking at this and determining if that is an actual viable threat. And then you can see that nothing was responded into the month of June. But in that month of May beforehand, once we just deployed the tool, we found 3 different hunts that we had to track down, and then had to respond to 2 of them. So the tool catches things right away, and that can be anything from, they're running just a PowerShell script to get access. They're trying to attack, a username. It can be multiple different things that they are trying to get into your network, but this is constantly monitoring, and you're not doing anything on this. The company that you have designated that your partner, whoever you choose to do this, is responding to this for you. But that I was just trying to give you a little comparison. So again, it doesn't matter if you're 5 employees or 5,000 employees. This is 15, and in 1 month they had over 4 million attacks onto their network that they had to be prepared for with the systems that were in place. So again, just there are tools. You don't want to hear from this company is basically what's going on. If you're running this and you implement this tool, if you hear from this company, that means something bad happened, and then they have to mitigate the risk. But at the end of the day, they're also stopping all these things from reaching your end users and reaching your data. So that's why I think Gennady and I would strongly suggest, again, vet it out. It has to be cost effective for you, but this would be one of the tools that I would really look at implementing. If you're going to implement any tool, this would be the one that I would look at. Gennady, anything to add to that?
I would agree. Small or large, it's very hard to manage environment. So MDR provides the great capability, whether you have a resources or not, because it's just another set of eyes. The other benefits, these are professional services in there. It's their core business. So they have a trained employees who actually knows how to triage these alerts and how to understand the attack patterns and how to decipher all of these messages and put all this information together. So yeah, I would strongly support that.
And Sean, this is a title company with only 19 devices. So
yeah,
to me, that's a lot of data that's being analyzed and a lot of potential threats. So if you're running an operation that's multi-state, 100 employees, it's just
I mean, honestly, some of the reports that we run just for about 70 employees, they're well into the billions, and so it's kind of scary. And again, I just be honest with you, this is a tool that helps me sleep at night. And it's not that I don't trust anybody, but I don't trust anybody. So I have rather have a tool to help my trust issues.
As a benefit of attending this webinar, this document is available for your download and consumption. This is not exhaustive list, but it's a good start because the topic of today's webinar is how do you do security either on a cheap or on a budget. And a lot of these tools are they have a free plans where you can start. Some of them are completely free. Some of them commercial tools, but majority of them will not break your bank and will give you the starting points. These are resources to get your templates for incident response plans. If you don't have it, it's resources to subscribe for security news and advisories that will help you kind of stay connected and and understand the threats that are coming in. These are the applications, tools, services, etc. As for attending these sessions, you'll get a copy of this. Jeremy, back to you.
All right, thank you, Gennady. Yeah, well, you can download it now from the handout section, or we'll also include a link to get it in the email tomorrow. We do have a few minutes left. Any questions? Pitch them in the questions box. If we don't get to your question, right there are the emails for the speakers. Please reach out to them. Great information about cybersecurity. Hopefully, the attendees, glean some information to better leverage their budgets, for maximum security efforts. If you missed parts of today's webinar, I think others in the office would benefit from listening. As we mentioned, a recording of the presentation will be emailed tomorrow, and you can always access our webinar archive on the website at balta.org/webinars. Continued education on this is just essential. Criminals continue to evolve their scams, their schemes. Cybersecurity will be some of the focus education sessions at Alta 1 in October. Sean, I believe Premier One puts on a yearly conference focused on cybersecurity called TitleCon. That's in Vegas this year, I believe.
Yep.
Any key things you guys are putting together for that one, or?
We are actually going to have, so all the security vendors that we deal with are coming in and giving their presentations on what these tools actually are. Even our Microsoft partner will be there to do an evaluation of any Microsoft tenants that you have, any licensing, any cloud, any security that you have. So they'll give you free audits onto your whole security stack and how you're storing your data. So there's, yeah, just trying to bring my other half of my life into the title world to educate the title industry on the security and the risks that are out there.
Sounds like a good webinar topic for next year on the Microsoft or Microsoft 11 upgrade to 12. Do I got that right? In October next year?
10 to 11.
10 to 11. Okay. And Gennady, you routinely provide some great cyber updates on Alta's online community. So pay attention to that. We also provide cybersecurity information on our e-news focused on technology and cybersecurity called Digital Fix. So lots of information for you to read and stay up to date on the latest on cybersecurity issues. I need to thank Stavi once again for sponsoring today's webinar. Gennady and Sean, thank you for sharing your cyber expertise today.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for having us.
All right, and that will bring us to the conclusion of today's presentation. Take care, everyone.